a question on Slido, well, I mean, I'm not sure how much we can help you, but I would hand over at this point to the moderator for this session. That is, of course, the person of Dr. Kemi Akinloluwa, who happens to be the Director of Programs at Nigeria Health Watch. Dr. Kemi, please. A round of applause for her as she takes the stage and then leads the Q&A session. Right. So I'm guessing, yes, of course, now is the time that you might be able to put on your microphone and then speak, okay? So if your question has not been captured and you do have the opportunity to speak directly, would require you to punch briefly, not that kind of punch, you know what I mean, just tap, better, tap the table microphone and then you might be able to speak and we'll have your question. All right.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's been an amazing time. And honestly, I have learned so much. I'm sure it's the same for you. So a few ground rules before we get started. So we're going to take questions both within the room, so you'll have the chance to use the microphone in front of you, and then as well online on Slido. The Slido link has been up a couple of times. Media team, if you could please put it up again so people can get a chance to leave their questions there. I strongly encourage you to use Slido, because you might not get a chance to speak within the room. Now, if you do want to speak within the room, you will indicate by raising your hand, and when I call on you, not before, after I've called on you, you can then turn on your microphone. There's an icon with like a human head and something that looks like amplify on your microphone, so that's what you turn on. Now, you can only speak after I have indicated that you can speak. And then when you're not speaking, please turn it off, because if you don't, the camera in the room will zoom in on you like it's doing to me right now on the screen. So you turn it off when you're not speaking. Is that fine? And then for the Slido link, if there's a question that someone has asked that you think really resonates with you and you'd like me to ask it, upvotes, so it can become more prominent at the top of my list. And then I can prioritize that in asking the moderators. And then when you do get a chance to speak, you have exactly 1 minute to ask your question, after which I will cut you off unceremoniously. And try to shy away from telling your life story and just go straight to questions so that they can answer the question in your heart. All right, so please put your hands together and join me as I welcome first to the stage Dr. Stephen Akintayo, keynote speaker. Yes, please come up, sir. Thank you so much. If you could please take the seats right beside me, that would be great. And then next, please put your hands together for Mr. Beulah Amofin Adeoye, as he comes up as well and takes the next seat. And then after that, the Postmaster General herself, Tola Odeyemi, will take the next seat after that. Please keep clapping, keep clapping. If these guys, if they have blessed you today, please keep clapping. And then finally, Mr. Daniel Ikuenobe to the very last seat over there. Please put your hands together for them as they come up. Keep clapping, please, until they are seated. They're not seated yet, by the way. All right, thank you so much, and thank you to amazing speakers. I almost got a bit emotional when I was sitting there and just listening to you speak, because this started as a dream a few months ago. This is way beyond expectations. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I'm saying this on behalf of the live class team that put this together, most of whom you've already interacted with. So to get us started, I'll prioritize the questions we already have online. I'll start with those, and then I'll go back to the room, take maybe 2 or 3 questions in the room, and then come back online and see if there are new questions. And there are some very interesting questions here. The first one here that I would like to read, I would actually target to you, Mr. Odeyemi. There's someone here who had a question about the traffic lights. Yes. So someone said, what should come first, the egg or the chick? Should we not have security in place before we demand that people stop at red lights? It's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek question.
Yeah. So I don't think people stop at red lights. Don't stop at red lights because of security. I mean, I've seen people stop at red lights in the middle of central business districts, right? So it's not a chicken or egg answer. It is a principled matter. I mean, yes, I'm not saying it's absolute. There's nothing absolute in life. If it's 3 a.m., you're the only person on the road, most likely the lights are flashing. It's considered, but for the most part, it's just people don't want to be inconvenienced. So think of a traffic light, I don't know how many people in Lagos, so for example. It's not even the cars, the Okadas, they don't even stop. So it's an inconvenience, and it's a almost like a principle of that, how do I want to put it? It doesn't matter. And it does, because a red light is actually for your own good. If everybody sticks to the red lights, we're all safer. I had a friend, so let me give you an example. I had a friend while I was in university who is still in a home today, brain function has never functioned since that night. This is probably about 15, 18 years now, because he was making a left turn and somebody decided not to stop at the red light. And he has had no brain function, has been in a home they're just managing his body, right? So I think sometimes we also think that rules are not for our good, like some, again, because people like to blame politicians in Nigeria. Let me just use that, because like somebody that you actually think that there was no thought behind it, that it's just there to inconvenience you, right? So that is why you think you don't care, because it's just an inconvenience for the Nigerian state again towards the citizen. Meanwhile, it is there so that everybody is safe. If everybody follows the rules, everybody is safe.
Thank you so much. That was an excellent answer. And leaning into that a bit more, I'd like to come to you, Dr. Stephen. Someone asked, is perfection real? If so, as individuals, does seeking for perfection in everything make or break you? Is striving for perfection or being consistent better? So which is better, striving for perfection or being consistent?
The question is confusing because ultimately when you're consistent, you will become perfect, right? So there can be perfection without consistency. But you're better off starting not perfect and then working, there are a few types of people. There are those who have IQ, there are those who you also have EQ, you also have QQ. I'm a QQ person, and it's called Quest Quotient, right? I'm not always the smartest in the room. I will hustle everybody else in the room. And give me time, right? I will take over the room. So that's the better formula, in my own opinion. You start, you're not perfect, people are laughing at you, people probably will mock you, you come up with this bogus idea, I'm going to be this, and that's one of the things I was sharing in my slide, that most times leadership is 80%. It's just you keep saying it long enough, you'll get there. That's what Joseph had. All he had was his dream and the audacity to say it. Innovate without fear.
Thank you so much, sir. I'll come to you, Mr. Beulah. So someone wants to know, does doing my own small parts truly make a difference in a country of 230 million? Where indifference is widespread? Should real change start from the top or the grassroots?
So thank you very much for the question. And I think, yes, so the direct answer is yes. Your small part is the most important part. Going to the question relating to traffic light, if you live in the West, everybody stops at the traffic light. So there is the expectation that you will stop. That's why you find blind people in London find their way around the city without sight, and they go home every day. So they trust the system that the next person will stop When they hear that sound, pom, 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 if they can't see, it tells them stop. It tells them go. Okay? So all of us have a part to play in the greatness of the country. Your part matters. Because if your part is there, that's the lacuna, that's the gap. And imagine everybody then living their gaps, and then we have a system that fails. If you have a system, then you have different aspects of the system. And for those people who watched air crash investigations, one tiny thing that failed, and in planes they have fail-safes for everything. Something just started and everything collapsed because that simple thing failed. So you're that important to the success. Yes, it's important. Everybody's part matters, and they must play it.
There was a small follow-up to that. So should change start from the top or from the grassroots?
It's both ways. I used to think when people say Nigeria has a leadership problem, because I was a follower for a very long time, I used to say, no, Nigeria has a followership problem. So we have a leadership problem and a followership problem. We are not demanding the right things from our leaders. Okay? So that's our fault. We're not demanding from our leaders. But leadership now matters. I've led in business. I've led in philanthropy. I'm now leading in politics. And I now understand why people say leadership matters. I'll give an example. From tonight, I'll be in my village. Politicians live in the grassroots, right? So forget the UN house and the posh. I'm going to sleep in my village tonight. And we're meeting 104 people tomorrow. And there's a budget that we've approved for that. But I'm challenging the budget. So they've come to me, and there are numbers. So don't let anybody tell that Nigeria doesn't have statistics. When we need the statistics, we have it. We know exactly what is going on. There are people that know it. But they've pushed and have pushed back. The leader can push back. The leader can say no. They will not do it in your time when you say no. You mentioned Lee Kuan Yew and how Singapore turned from a country where their neighbors rejected them to be one of the Asian tigers. The leader has his role to push back, to say no, to be alone, to be a madman. And at the end of the day, that system works because leadership and followership must move in step for a system to function appropriately.
Wow. Thank you so much. And to you, Mr. Daniel Ikuenobe, I have a question for you. I mean, someone has a question for you. As an early career person who wants to contribute to Nigeria's development, but doesn't have the wherewithal, how do I assist with Nigeria's development?
Start where you are. Do what you can. Use what you have. And I think that I remember my journey started on campus. I've told this story in my TED talk. I captured it like every Nigerian complaining about Nigeria. That's what you saw during the Obasanjo era. And I had a eureka moment. I just asked myself a question. If I were president on this matter, what will I do? My brain knocked. Any answer I came up with, I knew that it was wrong. You could tell 1,001 things that was wrong with that decision. It's like looking at Nigeria's security situation now and trying to re-engineer Nigeria, rebirth Nigeria. Your brain will be on fire. And so what I found was that there were more people complaining than people who were preferring solutions. So if you never see me on TV grumbling or complaining. While on campus, I started doing, policy drafts. I said, on this matter, see how you solve this problem. See how you solve this problem. In one of those writing stuff, and I'll put it into FedEx, and I'll send it directly to the office. And it got to them, surprisingly. One of those things I sent forward was what led me to lead the transformation in the maritime sector. So I led transformation under Kemi, the 5-point transformation program for the entire maritime sector. I led that program. But that was preceded by me just sitting down and looking at the problem and writing. Since then, I've done all kinds of transformation programs, right? The first community policing framework in Nigeria was done by me. The first COVID response framework in Nigeria was done by me. I mean, you could, so many, right? But all of that started with you just looking at problems and saying, how would I solve it, right? The muscle you build to be a critic and the one you build to be a problem solver are two different kinds of muscles, right? And so what happens many times that most of us in Nigeria have invested heavily on being critics. So the moment you put people in office of responsibility, they have no capacity to solve the problems, right? So I think that where you are now, begin to be a problem solver. And the issues in Nigeria are local, they're not national. See, every complex problem can be broken down into, it's a complex correlation of simple problems. So solve the simple problems and the big problems will solve themselves.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'll try to contain my excitement. But now I would like to take 2 or 3 questions from the floor. Okay, Dr. Kayode, 1, 2, 1 last one. Okay, so I'll take those 3 questions, and then after that, I'll take all 3 questions together, and then with my wisdom and of course with the direction of the panel, we would figure out who would answer, or you could direct your question to a specific panelist if you prefer. Dr. Kayode, you first.
All right, thank you so much, sir. My question is to Dr. Stephen. You said you have centers in UK, Dubai, and then probably Singapore, and US also. And I was wondering if my strategy for having in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, if it's WAP, should I be thinking more of the international community than expanding across West Africa? The second question, you offered your wife a query. What happened afterwards? How did she take it? Very well, thank you.
All right, thank you. Please ask your question.
Thank you so much. My question is to Dr. Stephen as well. So my question is, I have, I run a small consulting business that I started like a year ago, and majorly I provide services to like social impact organizations. And recently, a few people have approached me to either look for partnership or even for like having an equity stake in the organization. And while I know that that is important in the long run, I may be a bit worried if it's too early to start to commit to partnerships and equity and all that at such an early stage for a startup. So I wanted to just hear your thoughts on progression in terms of business. At what point do you think it's necessary to open up for partnerships and stuff like that?
Thank you. And Abidot's sister over there. Yeah.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Adeoye, and I have questions to 2 of the speakers. The first is to the CEO, Jidexa. You mentioned that your business was built from 1,000 naira. So to every young entrepreneur in this room, what is like the surest strategy that you recommend? What is the one take home that you feel everybody can employ if they intend to take business as a career path? And the other is directed to the NICO's CEO. You mentioned, I was surprised when you said that the distrust in governance is global. In the past 2 decades, it's been going down. So like, in your opinion, what is the main factor? What is the main contributing factor to this? Is it the globalization? Is it the access to information? What exactly? And how can we tackle that as an issue? Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Stephen.
Thank you. It depends on your business, right? So sometimes you have more opportunities in Africa and that you can start, that you can leverage on. So the answer will be, what kind of business are you into? That's what determines whether do I first start with Sierra Leone, or I start with Cameroon, or do I just do Dubai? In our case, Dubai, US, UK. but it's always a function of the product. The important thing is that money is money, right? Whether it's coming from Sierra Leone or it's coming from the US. So let's not, have that feel of, okay, I wish, it shines better when I say my company is in Dubai, right? It's not really that. And I have come to appreciate Nigeria better, running business internationally, when I see so much regulation internationally, right? For example, to start work on one of our properties in the US, over 100 acres, it's taken us over 2 years to just get permits. Now, if that were to be in Nigeria, I would say, you see. So there are some things we just say about Nigeria because we've not even tried it elsewhere. It's just an assumption that it's better elsewhere. Sometimes regulations are tougher in other parts of the world than even in Africa. In Africa, you can still do, you are my guy now. I remember one of my very funny experience was going to Dubai, and then my visa, those the early days I used to, before I started living in Dubai, and the visa was to end 12 a.m. of the next day. So I got to the airport, I think 11, between checking in, it was now 12 or something. And I changed everything. And it was years where our ATM was not working. If you remember, you travel abroad, you can't use your Nigerian ATM. And they said I have to pay the per day that you overstayed. I think maybe it was 100 dirham. I looked at the Emirati guy, see now, it's just 10 minutes now. I was so frustrated, and the guy too became frustrated. I said, system, me, nothing. I can't do nothing. System, right? Because the whole system has been automated, right? He empathized with me that it was just few minutes, but there was nothing he could do, right, to change it. So we love all these other countries, but when you get there, okay, why is it that most Nigerians are not entrepreneurs outside of Africa? Have you ever asked yourself? Why is it that people literally who are big entrepreneurs here, they japa and then they have to pick up a job? Some have to start Uber, some literally, go back to career. It's because of these realities. So based on your business, enjoy where God has placed you, right? My wife query, well, that's why she's my wife. I married one of the most amazing, my wife is just amazing. One day I'll write a book and it's just about my wife. Okay, so very understanding. I won't be here without her because our level of understanding, we knew we're not building a family business. We're not building a one-man business. My wife is not number 2, number 3 in our company. She's not next to me in hierarchy, right? In fact, her boss was a mentee, somebody who came to do internship with her. So, yes, that's the kind of organization we run. So it was intentional. And we knew we were building a transgenerational business. We're not doing one-man business. If you ask me today now, I want to do business with GTEX, I really don't know the price. I don't know which one. I can link you with somebody in the organization that can then help you. Unfortunately, I'm struggling with that because Nigerians don't understand that concept. They think you're arrogant. They think, oh, what are you talking about? Let me and you do the deal and let's just move on. But if you're building, and real estate is transgenerational. 100 years from now, the children of your client will still ask you questions. So you have to be thinking into the future. And that's why, but she understands that it's not easy, right? Maybe sometimes the meet you're supposed to be 4, maybe you'll be 3, right? But she's an amazing woman who has endured my leadership principle, right? The next question was partnership. At what point do you start? There's no hard and fast rule to that, right? Some people have started business from day one and it worked, right? Some people, in fact, we studied this. I'm currently doing an executive MBA with Harvard University, and we saw businesses where they started without even having a product. It was just a partnership, and it worked, right? We had case studies where it was that they had the idea first before they then looked for the people that fits, that could complement the idea, and it worked. So there's no hard and fast rule. Sometimes it's about who you are, it's about the business itself, it's also about the quality and the type of people you're dealing with. Your personality also comes to play. I, for example, have a melancholy, choleric personality, which means confrontation is not my problem. Okay, so if most of my partners are flag, do you see now? That business won't last, because they just see everything I say as being rude, arrogant, not being courteous enough. Am I making sense at all? So you also have to look at who you are, and that's why some people who are flag do better with partnership, right? They do so well because they are so conscious. Some people are relationship driven. Some people are result driven, right? So if you are relationship driven, then you do better with partnership. If you are result driven, then you want to be careful who are the partners you are bringing on board. Will they understand your personality so that it doesn't become something that they misread and then literally you are regretting going into that partnership? I hope it makes sense. Okay, I think there's one more question. Shortest way. I say that, to be honest, one of my biggest strategies, sometimes people see me as an organization as richer than we really are, because we leverage on two principles: vendor financing, right, and I also call it client financing. So for example, in the UK, we have inventory in terms of property to sell as of today now in the UK, over £1 billion, right? It's not my money. Do you see what I'm saying? But you're going to see me say, I have this property for you to buy, I have that property for you to buy. And that's where young people can leverage. You can get good at bringing both parties together, the buyer and the seller. I hope this makes sense at all. So this whole concept of I must own the product, I must be the owner of the product. There are people who have, put resources together, they own the product. There are also people who are looking for the right product. So what you bring to bear is integrity, is transparency. This is my court in this deal. We did, for example, over $100 million transaction in Dubai when I was there, and not one dime came into our company account. Not one. Right? Because I wasn't the one building those properties. So a lot of the clients will say, well, I don't even have the local currency in Dubai. I only have Naira. Let me just send to you, then you change it for me. I said, no, maybe I'll recommend a third party. And it helped, because we later then had about 5 clients that the developer, they defaulted, and the developer decided to revoke their unit and didn't give them their property. And they did everything to come after me. What saved us and me and our organization was that you didn't pay a dime to our account. Am I making sense at all? So it's important to now know what you bring to bear. I bring integrity, right? I'm not going to play games with you, to both parties, whether the clients, whether also the people who have the product. But I can assure everybody here, you can start your business today by looking for somebody who already has a product that is good, and say, I have connection. Remember, your network determines your what? Your net worth. There are 3 things that will make you, there are 3 ways to make money, right? Hard work, right? Smart work, okay? And the third one is network. Here's what I realize most of us do with our lives. we work hard. Particularly Africans, we're good at this. We work hard. In fact, we feel guilty. I remember one of my mentors was sharing with me about a deal he did, and in 6 months they were ready to pay him $24 million. Right, the first tranche was $5 million, and he felt he didn't work hard enough. And then told the person to put back the $5 million into the business, and well, the money then disappeared. Looking back, he's now saying, I should have collected my first $5 million out of this. But he had this typical Nigerian mentality of, I just put in $2.8 million into the deal, and in 6 months, this kind of huge money is coming in. No, let's work hard. Let's work hard. So you then have smart work, but some of us stop here. Hard work and smart work. Ladies and gentlemen, I realize that the wealthiest people in the world add network to it. And there's a reason why work is still inside network. Because to truly network, you must work. In fact, experience in the last 5 years that I've started mastering the art of networking has taught me that, man, the work, you don't get part two. But some of you, by the virtue of how you were born, the connection, the school you went to, unlike people like us who, you know the school we went to, right? So, so some of us have this naturally. Right, where you worked, right? I didn't work in KPMG. I, look for a job like my guy here. I looked for a job after I finished OOU. Who knows OOU? Olabisi Onabanjo University. And funny enough, it was just over 15 years ago. Then there are 3 categories of graduates: private school, number 1. Right, then federal school, number 2, then state school. I went to a state school. So I knew, first of all, I won't get a job. So I didn't even waste my time. I printed 100 CV with a cover letter that says, don't pay me for 6 months until I prove my worth. The first place I took my CV to, they said there's no table and chair. So they can't still give me the job. The second place, the receptionist collected my CV and walked away like I wanted to take her job and did not return. I had to excuse myself. The third place, I was told that, look, there's no job in Nigeria. You started business when you were on campus, which was the bulk SMS business. Move with it. And you can see what God has done 17 years later, right? So some of us, is social media that you have. Everybody knows you on social media. Look for a good product, right? Give assurance to the person, the owner of the product, that if you give me 6 months, I will sell this much, right? Can I go brand it, brand myself, understand the product, then I look for the customer. Some of you, I assure you, you will soon be billionaires very soon. Mr. Prince here, that's exactly what he did. Right, 2 years ago was looking for me to buy a particular property in Kaduna as a property agent. Right, at some point my team were up and down; they were not giving the response. But he has started from being the middleman. Do you see where I'm going now? So you understand the real estate sector, and then took up, said, "Let me try this one myself." Well, let's say the rest is history.
Thank you so much, sir. Yes, please. Question on governance, global governance.
Okay. The question on why the rise in distrust. So I think just 3 or 2 categories. I think in my own opinion. One, the first one, sort of like a triple one, which is globalization, internationalization of businesses, and technology. So what has happened is, with the rise of globalization, you sort of have like immigration and all these shifts, which has led to polarization in politics is now polarized, because when resources and people are crossing boundaries, there's a lot of people, somebody's bitter on this end, businesses leave one country to go to the other, people come from this area to go to this area. So in my opinion, and that has caused a lot of polarization. People don't trust their governments. Technology, I think a couple of decades ago, there was a time, particularly in the US, where they were breaking monopolies, right? Breaking companies that were too big, particularly the infrastructure companies and the oil and gas companies. What you now have with technology is that they're creating monopolies, but you can create monopolies across jurisdiction, right? So, for example, let's look at like a Starlink X Amazon, right? Even if you try and break up these companies in one jurisdiction, it doesn't really matter anywhere else. So you now have a lot of people, and I don't blame them. It was their idea. They are collecting their, I think Elon Musk is about to hit $1 trillion or something, right? So there's a lot of, so inequality is expanding because of these three things. So people are bitter. Then on the other end, you now have the rise of information. So there's information, disinformation, and misinformation. So you now have a coalition of just, different people with their theories, bitterness, then access to either collect massive information, not understand it, or disseminate information that is misinformation, right? So I think that's why it is so. People are not happy because of inequality, which is causing polarization, and there's massive outflow of this information or disinformation or misinformation across. Some of it is valid though, right? Lack of transparency, corruption, things like that. But it's just too many things. It's a cycle. That's why I think. I hope that was really something.
Thank you so much for tackling such a complex question with such simplicity. So there's one question online that I'd like to throw to all the panelists that you might want to weigh in on. Someone says, what were the demerits of efforts like Confab 2014 in social architecture? And what can citizens do when the president has the final say on major issues in Nigeria? Mr. Daniel, you're smiling, so I figure you'd like to start.
Governance generally is complex, and so you don't engage a complex problem with a simplistic view, right? I remember when people have been saying that, let's change our constitution or the system is not working, and my argument is you cannot say a system isn't working until you've pushed the system to its limits. The reality is, and this speaks to the point that Tola Odeyemi earlier on, that there are enough policy documents and plans in Nigeria. We have to just take them as is and use it. So, for example, if you made me president at any point in time, I will only have one agenda: implement what we have. You have a policy. Don't give me any new one. Implement it. You have a mandate. Implement it. That confab was a very powerful document. They finished the level of inclusivity across jurisdiction and all of that. I'm not sure we'll get the same now, because we are arriving at the point of groupthink. There's a national groupthink taking place, particularly politically, right? But at that time, you had more diversity, people of different views and all of that. So because of that, I think that document was a very rich document. You take that document and every other one and implement them as is. So I think, first of all, let's see that those things are great. A point that Beulah made earlier on as well was the weakness in execution. We go through this. In fact, I remember when I was in national planning, and we'll finish the document. The next cycle of plan that happened, they stripped the old document, repackaged it, and represented it. Because if you look at it, a lot of these documents, the content is largely the same. The secret document that we did in 2019, I saw a recent version, it was the same content. I mean, in terms of the issues that you have, right? And if you take newspapers, of the 70s, of the 80s, of the 90s, and the conversation we are having is exactly the same conversation. Right? So the issue is aim small, miss small. Just take the little things and just do them. And you will see how we saw it work. And I give an example. In 2017, 2018, one of the biggest things that happened in Nigeria that went unnoticed. We said but Nigeria was in recession. The only way was to get private sector to bring in investments and create jobs. We got the companies that had in their plans, that is, they had tangible plans, and had earmarked investments of $1 million and above and 1,000 jobs and above, and could deliver in 4 months, in a four-year horizon. The president and VP came in, opened the process, declared that every minister and head of agency had to be on call. You had about 300 companies from manufacturing, processing, agriculture, transportation, power and gas in one location for 6 weeks. CEO and project lead were all on call with, I remember one guy telling me, he said, he just called his boss, said, Oga, GD Gas and Power, GD Upstream, here, live, free of charge. These guys were in the room for 6 weeks on removing challenges that these private sector organizations were having. And these guys collected the value, many of them, and exited the process that the country, the nation did not benefit in terms of saying that this was what Nigeria did for these people. And that was because, and the reason, and again, talking of communication and narratives, because we were afraid that it would fail, we kept the media out. So we announced the launch. While the thing process was going on, it was a black box. Announced we had mobilized $2.5 billion in investment at the end. Of course, Nigerians do not believe you, right? But there are many things, there are many great things that happen in Nigeria that are not told. Of course, bad news travels fast and is louder, right? So I'm just trying to say that we have pockets of wins. And again, one last thing I will say: governance is a continuum. We have a way of doing where the best things is sliced bread. You forget the other. We're designing a delivery mechanism. I remember this happening very well. And they said, this is an APC government, forget PDP. And I'm like, what the hell? That makes no sense. Some of the best delivery mechanisms in Nigeria were from the Obasanjo era, from the Yar'Adua era. Why are you saying you're not going to use that, right? The delivery entities that were set up under Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala and were some of the best minds. So I went to interview these guys. How did you guys do it? I remember when Okonjo-Iweala was giving her a book, When You Fight Corruption, Corruption Fight, and I went and told her, so she was almost in tears. Because she was like, I hope you told them. I said, yes, because, you have to build on top of what previous people have done. So I think that in terms of what we need to do as a country is find out what has worked in the past, replicate them. Find out what worked marginally, improve them. And then if you put all of these things together, because how many millions and billions we spend annually in some of these programs is school fees. We invest. You need to have those cycles of improvement. Well, we did it first time, it didn't work. Learning process, did it next time. But you just didn't everything that happened before with all the investments and the school fees and the people that led that process, and then you start something entirely new. The process we did in Nigeria, there were 4 of us. The country spent, the consulting investment was about $1.5 million. And then if you combine that with the entire budget, it came to about $3 million in total. 4 of us got that knowledge, of which I was chief, and we left that all out of the system. For us, it is food for next life. I use it for consulting. I can do large-scale transformation program anywhere in the world. But that the school fees, the scholarship was given to me by Nigeria, but Nigeria has not benefited from it. And there are many programs like that in this country.
Wow. Does any other panelists want? Yes, please, sir.
So if I may, and thank you very much for that. I think one of the biggest challenges we have in Nigeria is that the worst of us rule over the rest of us, and the most of us do nothing about it. When I was a child, my parents would tell me about the universities of their days. And the story and the narrative we've been having as children is that Nigeria was bad then. So this Nigeria is bad. It's not a new thing at all. Nigeria was bad for our parents. Then it was bad for their own parents. And then it's bad now. Did we know that Okonjo-Iweala days, Jonathan days were golden eras? Oh, in retrospect, by the way, as a change maker, you would likely be celebrated in retrospect. Jesus died as a criminal, hung on a tree. Now, at his name, every knee shall bow. So as a change maker, when you're making changes, you are sometimes eccentric. I got an award once as a, I forget what the name was, but stranger, weird person. It was an award I collected. Okay, but let me face the Nigerian problem. So yes, we have this institutional memory, and nobody goes back to look at it. Okay, so now leadership itself is not a learning experience. In Yoruba story, I would say, "Omowani eje." No. I remember working with governments. In part of my work, I worked with governments. A particular governor in Nigeria will spend 8 hours on a day, do a research, spend another 12 hours looking at what is happening in the state. They will be there. He will be taking notes. When the government was leaving, they asked us to write the plan for the new government. That happens in Nigeria. I can tell you at least 7 of those people, I can mention their name, they're in government now. So it does work where it works, but they had an intellectual as the governor, and mentorship. There's nobody that worked with the person that is not in senior places in government today. I don't have clearance to mention the name. Just check Nigeria. I think it's only one state that has that, apart from maybe the current president. Okay, so the idea is that all of that comfort, all the think tank. Did you know that Singapore sent people to Cambridge to learn, because they were trying to create their sovereign wealth fund? How do we invest into the future? Because they tried it and it failed, and they now send people to places where the best minds were to understand how they could do it right. They tried, they failed, they tried again, and they got it right. Nigeria pays school fees every year, sending people to top schools in the world, but we don't make use of it. So what do we need to do? We need to gather those things and execute. And how do you execute? We need people that understand that the turn they have in government is not to make money. It is for them to serve and create institutions and systems that will survive them. I'm delighted when I'm listening to my brother here talking about legacy and something multi-generational. Our multi-generational in Nigeria largely is on paper only. So one of the major things we have to do is to create succession where you are currently. Who's that person going to take over from you? You are not successful until your successor is more successful than you. If you've not created a pipeline of leaders. Oh, by the way, in the Beulah Adeoye Foundation, if I died today, by the grace of God, I'll live. There are people that will continue that for the next 100 years. My organization. I don't run the organization. I took my lessons from professional services, KPMG, EY, Deloitte, put it into the system, and the system runs. Oh, I'm an employee in my own organization. Don't sign my letter. I'm appointed. So we need more people with such institutional mentality. Where we run to abroad are the systems that work, not systems that are dysfunctional. So we have everything here, and if you look at the blueprint for national transformation that I've been writing for your state over the last 1.5 years, and I've started writing for Nigeria now. You see blueprint for national transformation. Every session has recommendations. None of those recommendations involves a new thing. All of them are repurposing what we already have. We've done everything that's elaborate. All we need to do is repurpose them to be functional. And this country that was great will stop revving and get the tire on the road. Let's start moving. Thank you.
anchor on one thing, which has been said across board. Moving from the individual to the institution, that we need to be more focused on institution building. And in order for us to build institutions, it requires dying to self. Because it means that you need to reduce the individual for the benefit of the institution or the system. Michael Gerber talks about the difference between working in a system and working on a system. And so having that design mindset, because what happens for most people, and I'm going to borrow the word we're using for our conference, is most people would like to gatekeep because they want to stay relevant. They want to, manage access and restrict and consolidate power to the center. But when you do that, you weaken the system. So in order to build strong institutions and strong systems, you have to grant access to everyone, you have to distribute power, and you have to reduce your irrelevance. In the previous roles that I've had, the day I enter, I fire myself. And I say, look, I remember my last role, when I was leaving, they said, well, you're transitioning from country director to regional, what happens to the country team? I said, I'm 5 man deep. If one person leaves, another person steps in, and it won't break. And that team has run strong. Even now, they've changed government, they are still very strong. Right? So it's important that we learn the art of building systems and strengthening institutions as a going concern. Thank you.
So there was a second part to that question that I wanted to answer to, where I think the second part talked about the box stopping on the president's table. I think that was the second part of it. So I think that this is one of, I don't know who said something about, I think it was you, sir, mentioning where there's no accountability, we don't hold our leaders accountable. Because if we did, we would know that you might think that the box stops at the president's table. There are 3 tiers of government, and this is what the problem is. Everybody focuses on one person, when there are hundreds of people that hold power in this country that are not being held accountable, and we focus on demonize. And this is not because I work for Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It's just always, maybe it's a lack of civic education at a level. There's the president, there's the executive, there's the National Assembly, both at federal and state. So state is House of Assembly and there's National Assembly. And there's the judiciary. So let's say the judiciary, they're sort of, sacred cows, so we can't, their job is their job, we can't. But, so for example, I'll give for an example, the Orosanye report, right, that everybody, to collapse the cost of government. This report has been out for a while. Makes absolute sense. You would think that the president just needs to sign off on it. No. There are about, I don't know, maybe 200 institutions that are affected. Before the president can sign off on it, the National Assembly, both the lower house and the upper house, would have to amend the laws and acts of each of those organizations. Yeah. Amend the laws and acts of each of those organizations, either consolidating, rebasing, updating, or whatever, before the president can do what he needs to do. So there's one person that everybody talks about, but there are, in National Assembly, I think there are about 500 and something, if you multiply the houses of assemblies across all the 36 states, and the 36 governors and the FCT. So you would see, and the reason why I'm highlighting this is the accountability part, because the person mentioned that the box stops on the president's table. If the box stopped on the Nigerian president's table, we will then have a dictatorship, not a democracy. We live in a democracy, which is why the reason I'm highlighting this is that we need to start holding everybody accountable. We need to be knowledgeable about who is responsible for what, and hold them accountable. Because when everybody in that value chain and that ecosystem is accountable, it almost makes the job of the president irrelevant. right? It's just to either say no or yes, because so your security services, your senators, your representatives, your honorables, your judges, Supreme Court, appeal courts, at all levels. These are all the people who at a level determine the lived experience of everybody in Nigeria. Thank you.
So I want to start with the role of we as individuals. If you watch, I always recommend The Men Who Built America. It's a documentary you need to watch, right? The middle class in America didn't start with the government, right? Henry Ford, Dale Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, right? These guys started building great industries, and then civil society were demanding for better wages, and that led to what? Minimum wage, which increased what they were earning. Unknowing to them, they were creating the middle class, who eventually now make them extremely wealthy, because this was still the people who then were buying the cars, that were buying the gas, that were buying, and you have what you now know as that great economy in America. So you and I, sometimes instead of sitting back, blaming everyone, at least start something. I love when the person complaining has also done something. I will listen to you more, right? That, okay, your own corner, at least you're creating a change. So it helps your criticism to be valid, because we can see that at least you have some measure of result, but you don't have a job. Your only job is to tweet and to troll. That doesn't make sense. Even if it's to go and volunteer somewhere, go and refine your skill and build something for yourself, right? Because every great nation begins with a one-man dream. All these so-called great leaders, you talk about Lee Kuan Yew, he had a dream for Singapore, his own dream for Singapore. Was he executed by him alone? No. He needed other people, but it started with him having that dream. Is this making sense at all? So if I ask you now, what is your dream for you? Your dream for this nation, right? Can you start in your little way? And you'll be shocked. Years to come, you will really have made a difference, right? Instead of just complaining. The second part I want to talk about is communication. If I'm the president of Nigeria today, for 6 months, I'm on TV. I'm just talking to you. Oftentimes we talk about, I'm a bit close to President Obasanjo. We still had, devotion and breakfast just a few weeks ago. And we keep talking about the days of President Obasanjo. What Baba had was communication. Every month he's doing media chat. Who knows what I'm talking about? Right? There's media chats. You abuse Baba, he will abuse you back. Right? One of his major nemesis was Wole Soyinka. So when they interview, he said, I have told Wole, he should come and take a position. Right? Let's see what he will do. Right? If he can't do it, then he should leave those of us who are doing it, let him be writing his novel. That's what Obasanjo will tell you. But what he did was, we then had an idea of what government is doing. Right? The private sector knows where to key in. Right? It was easy to know. Everybody just understand what they need to do to really help the nation move forward. What has happened in Buhari's administration is we will beg, and then beg, and then beg. And then one day, Bubu will remember us with a 1 hour, chat after 2 years. We need leadership is 80% communication. Tell us where you are going. Share the dream. It's not waste of time and resources to talk to us. Now, I understand it. You still go viral negatively. People will still complain. We all complain about Obasanjo. But it didn't change the fact that for the first time, we started creating a middle class in Nigeria, which we've gone back on now. right? The gap between the rich and the poor is too wide. So for those in government, whether at whatever level, and I love what my sister has said, that we should hold everybody accountable. We need to, like, I love this idea she has about the post office, but I want to see her talk more about it, right? You have to talk to effect pass it. No, it's true. You have to, it's the truth. How did General Musa become chief of defense staff? Everybody complained to the point that politicians just want to look good. Many, and that's the problem with technocrats. Like when I met him 10 years ago, he still had hair, and there was no beard. I mean, white. I mean, see the man. I almost couldn't recognize you. Like, what's going on, right? But he has taught and lost all the hair. But what is the problem? Social media posts, he will not do. He will not. He's there. He's my friend. He will not do. The TV in America is all about policy today, policy tomorrow. Elon Musk met the president. This, that. Check our own TV. It's one. I'm sorry. He has not even managed his own fiscal health, and he's managing the entire nation. Talking on TV, talking rubbish, and that's all you are hearing. You that you have brain, we're not hearing you. And you have to be intentional about communicating that we have these ideas. We have these ideas. So again, we want those of you in government to talk. Because someone, for example, why does she need FEC approval? If you ask FEC what's their own problem, the money to execute that thing, they don't have it. But the private sector can raise that money. I'm telling you, there will be literally win-win if we will raise that money to literally build, those post offices, not just as post office, but as a mall. And 25% of it is then servicing the post office itself, and the rest is servicing. I mean, you can't even get decent. I live in Banana Land when I'm in Nigeria. We don't even have a decent mall where the richest people in Nigeria are. Is that bad? Ikoyi, show me how many good, well-designed mall. And that's my case. All right.
Sorry. I think, again, because I did some work with the federal government before I retired. It was my last job. It was at the central bank. And certain people I'd worked with in the past asked me to do something to help solve the Nigerian problem. And I remember then I was addressing the board of governors. It was Nigeria's currency, issue with the forex forwards. This government and this president has an opportunity to get Nigeria right. This is the first time all the stars are aligned. Okay? When you see something that's wrong, there's an opportunity, there's a seed for success. Anything can pass through the National Assembly now. Institutional reforms. Those of us watching, I live in England, but we're watching Nigeria very closely. I'm here every week. They can pass anything through. No, actually, they have the numbers with the defections. They do. So those things that were impossible can be passed. Those constitutional reforms can be passed. Will they do it? The jury is out. Oh, by the way, they also have people that they trust in this government. I remember I'll have a meeting with the Board of Governors, and in my mind, in my consultant mind, I think it's about a week or two to be done. And you see the governor say, please, can you get it done now? Oh, by the way, this committee, while we're having this meeting, you go and sit in the next room and get things done. Another thing is preparing communication. I saw efficiency in government when you have the right people in the right place. And the changes that needed to be done were done in weeks. You saw our currency come from 2,000 to almost 1,000. What happened? Did we sell more? Just fixing backlogs of things that were holding us back. This government has an opportunity to get it right. If they don't get it right, we will blame them. Because never ever has the stars been aligned than this government, not by their own design, but sometimes God just helps you in a way that you didn't expect. They must do the right thing.
seat, yeah. No, it's not a hot seat. I don't have any problem. So yes, the government has it right? No, it's not God, God is part of it. But it's very intentional. So the money coming down, the cost of Naira stabilizing is because there was an executive decision made when no executive decision was made for the last 15 years. So the things that need executive decision are done. That's why our oil and gas sector is opening up, where I think this year alone about $25 billion in investment has come in. It's by design by the government. Stabilization of FX is by design, by executive decision. This is why I said there are three arms of government. The things that need executive decision, that are under executive mandate exclusively, are being fixed. And you know what? I would want somebody to get just an assignment, no matter how much you do not like the president, please go and look at the Renewed Hope manifesto. We are executing it to a T. Rebuilding the foundational blocks of Nigeria that have been destroyed. Our currency, even agriculture. I mean, I don't like to point out, trillions of naira, 6 trillion was spent in 8 years. We have not manufactured an extra bag of rice. Because it was the policy, the framework was not meant to benefit Nigeria. But now, we have separated the things that need to be separated, ended the things that need to, and then now doing interventions the proper way. So it is painful. It's painful for every single person. Anybody can say anything about the president. Nobody wants to be the general villain. Nobody wants it. It's not a nice feeling to wake up in the morning and be insulted, no matter how tough-skinned you are. It's not a nice feeling. But there are things that need to be done that are painful. But for us in the future, in the next 10 years, for our children and grandchildren, we are fixing what needs to be fixed. Why, now that Nigeria, we're buying fuel in Naira, when last did we do that? I thought you all clap for the president. Oil importation has basically nosedived. There's no round tripping of our FX. Those are painful decisions that took a lot of political leverage. Our new tax law, took every single ounce of political leverage, even with a majority house. Because, like it or not, we're a fractionized nation. So it's not as easy. In fact, when I talk about my job, I have 10,000 staff. The days I want to give up, I was like, I can't imagine what the president is going through. 10,000 people are about to run me crazy. So I can't imagine what 230 million people are doing. You have an executive council. I was saying something. I mean, look, we have it. Who is going to? They'll tell you that it's not the president that's going to get them re-elected. Yeah. So you can have all your executive, not be president. I'll leave it there.
Okay, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Can I field it? Can I effectively? I will. I just, so your mics are green because I have the mic, unfortunately. I just wanted to urge you to please share your final comments in 1 minute. One each. Defense. The compare says 30 seconds, but you see, I'm more magnanimous. 1 minute each, please. Thank you so much.
That's Ojuru. All right, no, but I think it's my final comments. I'll just make it, and it aligns with what has been said. I went for a meeting, hosted some delegation from the US, and we met with the American Business Council, right? And they said the government has been very good for them, the policies and all of that, and it was so good to hear. I think that, and this is to speak to Stephen's point, that you have not communicated well enough. I think that the PR machine of the government has not been utilized well. And when you leave a communication vacuum, it will be filled with all kinds of things. So again, it's about the point I made in my presentation. It's about signaling. I think that, and I'm saying this so that all those in government will hear, the three elements of signaling: one, the president and all those that work for the president have to ensure that their posture and body language is right and sends the right signal. They have to ensure that those who are involved in execution around them are seen to be executing and are communicating the execution in line with the body language. Then having a proper, clear, coherent, consistent communication mechanism around this, so that those who are performing like yourself and everybody else are saying the policies and the programs of the government and the results that are being had, so that everyone else, both those who are citizens and other stakeholders, can buy in and align, and then you can see cascade effect of the transformation the government is currently doing. Thank you.
Dr. Stephen, your mic was also green with you, so did you have a 1 minute or 30 second?
Well, if she has been the spokesman of the president, honestly, most of us will have been shouting on your mandate, we shall stand by now. So again, it goes back to leadership is 80% communication, right? So we can do better. But I'm really passionate about this post office conversation. I'm not stopping. If you have a consortium of real estate developers who are ready to partner with you, and the government will need to drop a dime, I'm too sure the president will push that to the National Assembly and get it done, right? And that way we can move fast, because it's a brilliant idea. And I think that's sometimes a challenge with some of our technocrats, because they are also the yin-yang thing, right? So the guys who like to talk don't like to think. Those who like to think don't like to talk. You see the issue now? So the people talking are not thinking. The people thinking are not talking, and then we end up having good ideas, which goes back to what Daniel was saying. Policies that are just rotting, and then the guy who can talk go and brush up, and we still not execute it, but we get the money, right? I rest my case. By the way, there are a few of us who then can think and we can talk. And that's what I need the two of them to start doing. Let them join us.
All right, thank you so much. Can you please put your hands together for my amazing speakers?